going on, everybody out there in YouTube land? C1122 Wingnut Radio out here for Anarchy Television. And I'm just sitting out here looking at the sky again. And I've got some nice light show going on in the sky over there. Matter of fact, I'm gonna move over here, see if I can get a better picture around that tree. Let's see if I can get. And I broke out the really good tripod this time so I can get some steady shots. So I'm not just sitting here holding my cell phone in my hand. There we go. Let's sit down right there. There we go. Some more heat lightning. I was sitting, wandering around the internet, and this is just fresh on my mind. That's the only reason I'm talking about it. But I was sitting there wandering around the internet, and I'd come across these videos of these dumbasses, going into stores and grabbing a bunch of shit and like filling up a shopping cart or whatever, and then just walking out, and they think it's their stuff. It's like, I stole this stuff, so it's mine, that kind of stuff. I think it's interesting. What I find is interesting is the amount of people that will defend that action. Where I come from, I'm a Southern boy. I'm gonna tell you something. Where I come from, man, people don't play that shit. Where I come from, and the type of people that I grew up around, we don't play that kind of shit. People don't just go into stores and start, grabbing a bunch of shit and walking out. There's too many people that are taking it upon themselves to stop them. But there is a lot of people out there that are like, they'll get on that damn keyboard of theirs and sit there. It's like, it's not your job to do anything. Why don't you just let them do it? Why put yourself endanger yourself, and just let them do it. And I'm going to tell you something. I mean, I don't care what it sounds like, but majority of the people that have that type of reaction are usually hood rats or the same type of ninjas that would do this shit. And ninjas got to keep that stereotype going, and them hood rats, you got to defend them. And but that's just they don't have any. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. They don't have any morality. So they just sit on the internet and troll people that advocate for a better life, and willing to stand up for what's right. And you get a lot of those trolls out there that want everybody to be a victim. They want to perpetuate their own fear onto other people. And I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit, get a little bit closer. And it just drives me nuts that this is where we're at right now. You got so many people out there that will defend this type of behavior, and because, you know, I don't know. It just wasn't brought up right, evidently. I'm not claiming to be a saint. You know, I'm not claiming to be the best, you know, compass of morality out there. You know, I've said this to some family members of mine, you know, when it comes down to it. You know, it's like I got nieces and nephews and stuff like that. And I've said to them, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not the best role model out there, because I mean, I've done some stupid shit in my life, I will admit. But there comes a time when, you know, you got to realize, you know, what's right and wrong. Now, I will admit, I have stolen things in my life. You know, and I'm not justifying what I did for the reasons I did it. You know, because I mean, you know, I had my reasons, and you know, just because I was in a situation where I felt there was no other way, doesn't make it right, and it doesn't justify what I've done. So this is my thing when it comes down to like all these stupid ass ninjas out there. Now I'm gonna tell you something. Don't get me mixed up like I'm racist or anything like that, because I got family that are black. But I would tell you this right now: there is a difference between black people and ninjas. All right, there's a lot of good black people out there that wouldn't even come into their mind to do some of these things. But ninjas out there, man, it don't matter if they're male or female. Them ninjas out there, they feel like they have the right to do this, and they feel entitled to do this type of behavior. And they will defend the behavior of others that does this. It drives me insane. And this is where everything, the downfall and the destruction of all kinds of stuff. And I'll just go to a simple thing. You know, a lot of these stores, you know what I mean, that these people are doing it in. Now, they'll sit there and say, oh, it's just, you know, a bunch of billionaires that own these stores and blah, 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 whatever, you know, and all this other shit. Yeah, I mean, you know, that may be true. But the thing is, it affects all of us. I mean, you can sit there and try and say that the reason why the prices of things go up high is because of this and that or whatever. But I will say this. One of the main reasons why a lot of prices in stores that keep on getting robbed like this go up is because the stores have to compensate for all that lost product. And the way they compensate for that lost product is they raise the prices. And then in some cities, man, what they do is they start putting every fucking thing, even the damn toothbrushes, under lock and key. Is this really the type of world you want to live in? Where everything is extremely expensive. And everything is under lock and key. Not me, man. I don't. It's not the world I want to live in. It's not the world I grew up in either. You know, when I was growing up, you know, the color of your skin didn't matter in my opinion. You know, I mean, I've lived in some places where it was a big deal, but on a majority basis down here where I grew up and places where I've lived in my life, it wasn't a thing. It mattered if you were good people. And if you were good people, you know, that's the bottom line. I didn't give a shit what color skin you got. It matters if you were good people or not. I really actually kind of feel sorry for some people out there that have this mentality that we should just stand idly by and let this type of shit happen. And I mean, we can go all the way from the neighborhood fucking dumbass that wants to go into a damn store and rob a bunch of shit out of there, all the way up to the tippy top of the government that wants to rob you of everything you got. You know, steal all your wealth from birth till death. I don't know where we're going in this world, and it concerns me. I don't want to use the word worry, because I don't worry about it. You know, it just concerns me of the type of world that will be here after I'm gone. You know, and we all live a very short time on this world in the grand scheme of things. But I do wonder about it, and I am concerned of what the future generations are going to have to live in. But I also am concerned of today. You know, if it ain't the good people going to stand up now, when does that happen? If it ain't us good people standing up to this shit, who will do it? Because I'm going to tell you something, man. Nobody's coming to save us. Not Trump, not anyone in government, not even fucking Jesus is coming to save us. It is up to we the people, the good people of this planet, to stand up against evil in all its forms. Because I'm going to tell you something, man. We have been dealing with this type of behavior for over 3,000 years. It's time to put our foot down. It's time to say no. It's time for us to stand up. Because I mean, honestly, man, if we don't, the deeper we get, the darker it gets. And that's what's happening. We're getting deeper and deeper into shit. And I'm going to tell you something. I have noticed in my years of being alive on this planet so far, the deeper we get, the darker it gets. And I have been trying to warn people for a long time and tell people and show people certain things over the years. Now I've been talking a little bit of this here and there for over 20 years, probably about 30 years. And it still frustrates me that we're continuing on this track that we're going. It really is. You got the 1% of the 1% that want to act like gods without any permission. And these people are the ones that are pulling the strings of the entire planet. Unfortunately, there's only about 5% of us that are trying to open people's eyes and wake them up. But then you got another 4% that are the trolls, the naysayers, and the so-called fact checkers that are paid to sit behind their damn keyboards and sit there and muddy the waters and belittle and ridicule anyone that tries to put the truth out there. And then you got the rest of the people that are actually defending and perpetuating the chains of our enslavement. They want that cage. They're comfortable in that cage. And any bird flying around out there free, they look at them like they're the enemy. It's like, how dare you fly around out there all free and shit. You should be in this cage with the rest of us. I don't know. This victim mentality, this slave mentality, this mentality of a few in the world have the right to rule over everyone, and the rest of us have the obligation to obey, has been going on for over 3,000 years, and it needs to stop. It needs to be eradicated from the fucking planet. I am not a leader, nor do I want to be anyone's leader. And I know we cannot force a better way of life onto people. We have to inspire it. I know we cannot kill an idea with bullets. You can only kill an idea with a better idea. I also know that some of my views and some of my thoughts are not necessarily in line with the mainstream, because the mainstream has been programmed for many, many generations into believing that we must have masters, we must have rulers, we must have their idea of order, because that's the way it's always been, you know. I remember one of the arguments that I used to get into with my dad when he was alive was, you know, it's that, you know, we should just go along to get along. You know, this is the way it's been. This is the way it's always going to be. You know, we can't do nothing about it. You know, don't even think about it. Don't even try. It's futile. But that is what the powers that should not be want us all to believe. Because they don't want resistance. They don't want any kind of pushback to their will. You know, like I said, you can go all the way down to the neighborhood fucking little jackass that wants to rob a damn store. He doesn't want any pushback. He doesn't want any resistance. He just wants to rob that store and leave with all that stuff and nothing happen. That's what he wants. And then you can go to the macro style of the governments around the world. They have no desire for any resistance or pushback to their will. Because they just want to continue enslaving all of us and keeping us all in this domesticated animal type of a mentality where, you know, we're all dependent on them, and we don't know anything else. It's one of the reasons why that jackass robbing that store thinks that they are entitled, or they have the right to do so. And no one should say anything about it. Nobody should stand up against it. You know, where I come from, the type of mentality I come from, that shit won't happen. You know, especially, you know, around where I've lived most of my life and all that stuff. That shit don't happen. You know, quite honestly, if somebody was to try and do that, they won't make it out the damn store. Because, I mean, you know, it might be against store policy for the employees to actually do anything about it. But, you know, just average people will do something about it. You know, I'll give you an example. Just recently, there was a guy that just started stabbing a bunch of people in Walmart. It was a bunch of just average people. One of them included had a firearm and stopped that person. It wasn't the cops. It wasn't the government that stopped them. It was just average people that took it upon themselves, put themselves in a position of danger, which is, you know, freedom is dangerous. And they put themselves in that position and stopped that man from injuring anybody else. You know, for those people out there that say stuff like, oh, it's not your job to do that. It's the cops' job to do that kind of stuff. You shouldn't get involved. You should just let them do what they're going to do. Eventually, they'll get caught. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, and if they do, yeah, whatever, man. Next thing you know, they get put in jail. And the rest of us that pay or get forced to pay taxes or get extorted in the form of taxes, pay for their 3 hots and a cot for however long they're in there, and then they get, released, and they're out there doing the same fucking shit over again. So technically, it's everybody that ends up being the victim of those actions. And that's just one dumbass that wants to go out there and fucking rob some store. Ends up making everybody, especially in that community, a victim. For one, like I said, that store will start raising their prices. They'll start putting all this stuff, all this other kind of security measures and all this other shit, like locking everything up. You know what I mean? Where you got to have some kind of some employee to unlock the cage that the toothbrushes are sitting in to get a damn toothbrush. You know what I mean? So, this is the type of stuff that ends up happening and creates all of us victims, because everybody else gets affected in that. That dumbass thinking, this is a big corporation, whatever, big billionaires, whatever, own this store, blah, 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 blah. They thinking, nobody's getting hurt. Nobody's getting hurt in the process. They can afford it. Like I said, hell. I'm not, like I said, I've stole a few things in my life. There was a time, man, where, and I'm not using this as an excuse, and I'm not saying this is justified in my excuse for this, but there was a time where I was hungry and I didn't have any other way of getting food. So I stole food. But like I said, that doesn't make it right. I think back to those days, and there's possibly something else I could have done. But at that time, I didn't know any other way. I think that is one of the biggest problems, is that we have in our head, there's a certain amount, there's a few choices that we've got. And there's no one out there, or at least in my own personal experience, there was nobody out there at that time to show me that there is other choices. There's other options. There's even things right now in my immediate life where I feel like I have very few options and very few choices. And I wish there was some more out there that I just don't know about yet. But I'm always looking and searching for those other options. On this macro level, you got this worldwide cabal working against all of us worldwide, the average people. and they've convinced all of us, or majority of people anyway, I'd say, majority of people on this planet, to think that we have no other options. This is the only option, is to comply and go along to get along. You know, just, this is the way it is. You know, it'll never change. It'll always stay the same. I know in my gut, and my gut tells me that is not true. But I don't have all the answers. Nor do I claim to have all the answers. I've got some ideas, but you know, I can try to do as much as I can in my own little bubble, but I'm surrounded I'm like a little bubble inside of a big bubble. And that big bubble that surrounds me is not on the same level that I am thinking. Unfortunately. Like I said, there's probably about 5% of the world's population that are awake and have been trying to awaken more people. But there's probably only 2% of that 5% that are actually doing something about it. You know, and that bothers me sometimes too, because I mean, you know, I start thinking about oh man, I'm going to go off into some other shit here. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to go into some crazy shit. I start thinking about multi-dimensions, you know, this, quantum string theory and all this other stuff, multi-dimensional stuff, you know, because I mean, you know, there's a lot of physicists out there that, that really do think that this is a reality, that there is many realities. This just happens to be one of them. You know, many worlds out there, parallel universes, parallel worlds, whatever you want to call it, out there simultaneously happening. You know, like an alternate, like many alternate me's all living at the same time, but just slightly different. And there's possibly a world out there where I'm not just banging my head against the wall all my life and I'm actually making a difference. And quite honestly, I might be making a difference. Who knows? You know, I could be in this world right now that I am right now. I could be many people's hero. I could be many people's, anti-hero, I could be, in a lot of people's eyes, I could be at somebody that they can love. And also in a lot of people's eyes, I can be that person they all hate. And I've seen this in my life, I'll go back to my radio days. For every one person that just can't stand the sound of my voice, there's at least 5 people out there that enjoy talking to me. You know? You know, for every one person that thinks I'm an idiot, redneck, there's 5 more people out there that think I'm actually pretty smart. Oh shit, I did not get that on film. Damn, there was a damn shooting star that just streaked across the sky. That was pretty cool. Anyway. And for every one of those people, there's probably 5 people out there that think I'm a very, you know, smart, lovable person. And, you know, there's like all that stuff in between too when it comes down to it. And that can go for anybody out there. Everybody out there has probably got those people out there, you know. Everybody's probably got, you know, people out there that can't stand the sound of their voice, and some people just love to hear them talk. I don't know, y'all. Along with this light show that I see out here in the distance that you've been watching for a while, I'm also seeing those little dots up in the sky, moving across the sky. Not sure what they are, like I've said before. Because, I mean, you know, I've tried zooming in on them and stuff like that with different stuff. Like I got binoculars and all this other shit. And I've looked in close, you know, and I mean, there's nothing blinking on them. So, I mean, you know, that tells me they're not an airplane. So I don't know what the fuck they are. But they steadily go across the sky. And like I said, just a second ago, I saw a streak go across the sky. Kind of like a shooting star type of streak go across the sky. That was pretty cool. I don't think I got it on film though, because I think it was above the camera. So what I'm trying to say is, we can't force freedom on people or force them to actually look through the lenses of freedom. We've got to inspire them. Because that's what the other side has been doing. That's what the evil side's been doing. It's been inspiring them to, you know, or manipulating them, in a sense, into looking through those lenses. And there's a lot of that out there, though. There's a lot of that out there, though. Seriously, for over 3,000 years, a lot of people have been in that mentality. There's another one of those lights. I don't know if I can get it. It's a pretty faint light, and then I got clouds. Never mind. I ain't going to try and get it. And but I'll just keep it on the light show that I have out here in the distance. This is much more interesting than a little speck floating across the sky. I don't know. I was sitting there watching a TV show. I haven't really been able to see full seasons and all that stuff. I've been watching little clips on YouTube. But I've been watching a show that has this what I look at, it has a Fight Club and Matrix type vibe to it. And basically a few individuals take it upon themselves to go against and defeat the powers that be's control on all of us. You know, and honestly, me personally, you know, I know there's much worse things than death. And me personally, I want that much worse thing than death for those powers that should not be. Because I think death is just too kind. It's too kind. I want them to be punished. I want them to suffer 10 times or tenfold of the type of suffering that they have endured, or they have actually, they haven't endured, but the type of suffering that they've imposed on millions of people for the past 3,000 years. I think all of them should get tenfold of that suffering before they die. That's how I see it. You know? But I know that the powers that should not be would want to take my voice away. Because they can't stand not having that monopoly on force and violence. That monopoly of being a ruler and master over everyone. And they've been using the same old tactics forever to keep people quiet and keep that dissent, that rebellious. You know, I'm going to tell you something. Not one tyrannical government, let's say, lack of better words, not one tyrannical government through history has ever been defeated by peaceful resistance. It has never been defeated by peaceful protest. Not one. I know violence can be used for good. Violence, I mean, put it this way, self-defense can be very violent. That's why I know violence can be used for good. But like I said, the only way to defeat and kill an idea can only be done with a better idea. It cannot be done with bullets, swords, sticks and stones. But yet, that is what the other side will be using. Bullets, swords, sticks and stones, explosives, disease, famine, force and violence. That's what it'll be using. You know, there's a part of me that thinks that the only way is to fight fire with fire. And, you know, in a way, you can take that in many different ways. You can take that with violence against violence, or, like I said, is using the same type of psychological type of shit that they've been using. They've been using psychological stuff to get everybody on their side, or obedience on their side, their compliance, by controlling the mind. I don't advocate controlling the mind, but I do advocate of controlling your own mind. I don't think that we should allow any longer for the powers that should not be to control our destiny. We should have control over our own destiny. I got my dogs there out there doing barking at something. I'm not sure exactly what they're barking at yet. Anyway, I'm glad you guys stuck around for a while and listened to me talk. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You know, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I don't know. I keep on threatening to do it, but I want to have a live stream and get a panel of people up. I want to have a conversation on stuff like, you know, multidimensional shit, you know, dreams, stuff on that level, and actually have a conversation on that stuff, and, you know, and talk about it. You know, I want to get a bunch of people up on panel and talk about that kind of stuff. I mean, I have my own thoughts on that stuff, man. I really do. And I do have my own questions. And I'm just curious. You know, I'm always looking for answers. I'm always willing to learn something new, something. Especially if I'm interested in something, I love learning new stuff. I'm just going to leave it sit here and look at this light show for a while. And I'm about 53 minutes, or no, wait a minute. Yeah, 53 minutes in. I'm gonna let this go for 60 minutes and cut it off at an hour. And it's gonna take me forever to download this onto YouTube, so, but I'm gonna keep this going for another 7 or 8 minutes here. Just enjoying the heat lightning off in the distance. You know, when I was sitting there talking about my idea for this live stream about, multi-dimensions and dreams and all that stuff, if you guys are interested in a live stream like that, and you are wanting to come up on a panel and talk about that kind of stuff, let me know in the comments if that's something that you guys want to, something that you guys want to see. Or, if that's some kind of a subject that you guys want to get in on. Because I know, I know, I don't think, I don't feel, I know we are not the only ones. We are not the only living things on this little tiny speck of dirt in the vastness of all this shit. I've been shown a few things in my life, because I was on this, what I call a walkabout, for a while. And the truth that has been shown to me in my experience has led me to know certain things. I just, it's like I said, it's not something I think, it's not something I feel, it's something I know. I can't prove one way or the other if it exists or doesn't exist. I can't prove any of that shit. I just know it. If I could prove it, even if I could prove it, there's so many people out there that are stuck in this fake fucking shit, this fake bullshit that's being put over our eyes for so long. I mean, seriously, we've had basically a fantasy world strung over our eyes since the beginning of the, turn of the century, since the beginning of, it's like one of those things, actually it's been pulled over our eyes for a long time in one way or another. Like I said, over 3,000 years, but with the advancements of all kinds of shit that we've come up with, technology-wise, technology can be in different things, actual stuff or information. That can be technology also. a lot of this stuff, man, I don't really think that it is originating from this world that we're living in. There's definitely other things involved and other things at play that are definitely pulling the strings on a lot of levels. I mean, can you imagine that other self of yourself living its everyday life on another world, another dimension, side by side, simultaneously with you right now? What that other self, or that many other selves of yourself, what they're like, and how different their lives are. I mean, quite honestly, let's say your other self is probably a billionaire. Let's say your other self is actually, you know, a bum living under an overpass. Let's say that your other self lives in a world where there is no suffering, no pain. Your other self lives in a world that's even worse than what we're living in here. There's possibly another self of you that is just slightly different than you, but everything else is exactly the same. Just slightly different. Like, for instance, your other self has just made a couple of choices different than yours. Like, you were going out to the store, and instead of taking a right, you took a left. That slight, subtle difference. But everything else is exactly the same. Living side by side, simultaneously with us right now. We all have choices. I even have to remind myself of that, you know. I have to remind myself that we all have choices. And it's not just a this or that type of choice. There's more than two choices sometimes. There's actually probably 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of, multiple hundreds of different choices. It's quite possible that in those other dimensions, we don't live in a binary, you are on or off type of a scenario. On the quantum level, instead of a binary 1 or a 0, that 1 or a 0 is both at the same time. And that could be infinite. So I ask everybody, include myself. Don't get me wrong, I'm not excluding myself from this. We all have this choice. And it's like a question that you can ask yourself. To what end? To what end do we continue to go along to get along? To what end? I don't know. Like I said, I don't see myself as a leader. I don't see myself as somebody that could be a leader. I have had moments in my life that made me question that, though. I had a moment in my life where I was talking to somebody, and they were all kind of in a bad moment in their life. I didn't know it at the time. Hell, I didn't even know the dude. I didn't even know anything about him, really. But we sat down and had a conversation, and we were talking some real deep philosophical shit, whatever it was. I don't even remember, honestly. But evidently, whatever we were talking about and whatever I had said was evidently profound. Fuck, I don't know. It stuck with them. And for some reason, that person changed his ways for the better. And that path that he was on was switched to a different path, which was better. And I've asked myself this over the years, because this was years ago, over a couple of decades ago. I've asked myself, I've wondered, because we all of us, our paths cross for a reason. And it's quite possibly that in those other realms, those other lives, those other whatever, our paths have crossed there too. But for some reason, I started thinking, I was like, what if I never met that dude? What if I never sat down and had that conversation with him? Would he have continued on that same path that he was on? Or would he organically, without my conversation, found that other path to a better way? I've wondered that. I think we all can affect other people, even if we don't know it or realize it. And it could be for the bad, it could be for the good. So what I'm trying to say is, it's like, what path do we want everybody to go on? Or you know, I mean, you know, you really, you can't help anybody that doesn't want help. But it's quite possible people don't even know they need the help. It's quite possible they don't even recognize they're being helped until after the fact. It's quite possible that we don't even recognize that we're helping others. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I've gone on too damn long. Rambled way too much. And this is going to take forever to download. I want everybody out there to have a good night, or a good day, or whatever it may be, wherever you are. I want you to think about it. Because that's really what I'm trying to get people to do, is use their mind and think about stuff. You know, because that's what the powers that should not be. They want to control your mind, because they know if they control your mind, the body will follow. And that includes your brain, your heart, your genitals, your gut. It would all follow in you know. And I've said this before also, don't ever doubt your gut. Your gut will always tell you the truth. But your head, your heart, and your genitals will lie to you. It doesn't always, but it will. Yeah, it will. So, follow your gut, but have control over your own mind. Now, your heart is a different story, your genitals is a different story. I don't know how. That's more like that natural aspect of you. It's hard to control those things, unless you're like a Vulcan or something. You know? But, anyway. I am the 1122 Wingnut Radio, out here for Anarchy Television. And I'm back out.